There's been an outpouring of grief for a mother and her 3 children who were burnt to death in their car in Brisbane's east yesterday. There's also anger at the man accused of setting them alight. He's been labelled a monster and a disgusting human being. As police continue to investigate, neighbours and relatives have painted a frightening picture of how a marriage descended into violence.
A community in mourning, shattered by the loss of a mum and her 3 children in the most horrific of circumstances.
How can this happen?
It's a really nice suburb and yeah, just devastating.
Aliyah, Lena and Trey, aged 6, 4 and 3, perished in the car. Their mother, 31-year-old Hannah Clark, a trampoline champion, died in hospital overnight, leaving family and friends distraught.
And she's the definition of love when it comes to family. It's not just her family that's crushed, it's the entire trampoline and community gymnastics Australia.
RIP, you beautiful souls, wrote her brother. I will forever love you all.
Lived, breathed, do anything for those kids.
Their father, former New Zealand Warriors player Rowan Baxter, set them alight.
From what I am seeing, yes, I believe that an accelerant has been used.
Police say he died on the footpath with self-inflicted wounds. A knife was found at the scene. Tradies working close by tried to help.
She's just screaming out for help, and then said that her babies are in the car. But yeah, it was too late.
In a statement, the local school remembered the girls fondly. Aliyah and Lena both loved coming to school and skipped happily to their classrooms every morning. They loved sport and outdoor activities. And as the community paid tribute to a mum who'd do anything to protect her kids, family lashed out at their accused killer. My beautiful sister-in-law and my nieces and nephew had their lives taken by a disgusting human being. Her parents have exhausted themselves to try and help Hannah escape this monster.
I can say that domestic and family violence paperwork and applications were put to court.
Hannah Clark and Rowan Baxter were going through a bitter separation. A fitness business they'd run together for 5 years also closed.
If you have any knowledge of the Baxter-Clark family, that you come forward and speak to police.
Beyond the tributes and the sorrow, there lies anger as the nation once again asks itself, when will this sort of senseless violence finally end?
These kind of acts, they have to be stopped.
Jessica Van Vonderen, ABC News.
Political leaders and advocates working in the family violence field have also paid tribute to Hannah Clark and her children. Support workers are determined their deaths will not be in vain.
As the nation woke to the news, 31-year-old Hannah Clark died from her injuries overnight, the shock of the sheer violence that unfolded in an affluent Brisbane street reverberated all the way to Canberra.
So senselessly and maddeningly murdered in what has occurred in a terrible act of violence. And it just grieves our hearts terribly today.
The Queensland Premier also acknowledged the deaths in Parliament.
Our city, our state, our nation has been left shaken, appalled and desperately saddened at an unimaginable tragedy that unfolded in the suburbs of Brisbane yesterday.
A clearer picture has now emerged of the lead-up to the suspected murder-suicide of Hannah Clark and her 3 young children. Police say they had numerous call-outs for assistance to Ms Clark and had also referred Rowan Baxter to support services. They confirmed a domestic violence order had been current.
When it comes to Hannah, we have dealt with her on a number of occasions. We have actively worked with the Brisbane Domestic Violence Centre in supporting Hannah throughout her family issues.
As floral tributes mount at the scene of yesterday's murders, advocates are uniting in solidarity.
We wanted to let, Hannah know that her death will not be in vain. We've got a stronger resolve than ever to fight this insidious community issue until we get the change that we need.
It is really time for us to stand up as a community, and we'd like to urge everybody to, watch out for each other, reach out and offer support if people need it.
Stephanie Zillman, ABC News.
OK, let's bring in Zoe Rathis from Griffith Law School. Zoe, thanks so much for being here. Tell me, domestic violence orders, are they worth the paper they're printed on?
As someone who's worked in this area for nearly 40 years, I have to say that, yes, domestic violence orders have been a very important part of changing the landscape. But there will be women for whom taking out a protection order is not going to protect them from a violent partner who is determined to continue to have that woman in their life, that kind of coercive, controlling partner. And a woman can have a protection order, she could have it in her hand at the time. Some men will not be stopped by that.
Yeah, there's a presumption in law of equal shared parenting when a relationship breaks down, which is fine principle, but in cases where domestic violence is an issue, where controlling behaviour is a feature, is it time to revisit that principle?
Yes, so in the Family Law Act there's a presumption of what they call equal shared parental responsibility, which means that, or that is in the best interests of children. Now what that means is that lawyers tend to advise clients to agree to that. Courts make those orders very often, and we do know that even in circumstances where there's been domestic violence, that kind of order is often made, even by consent, because all of the members of the family law system push women towards that end. Mediators, counsellors, others talk about this, talk about equal shared parental responsibility being in the best interests of children, because that's what the law says. This is very, very dangerous. I will add that the Australian Law Reform Commission recommended that that presumption be repealed and that other wording be used in the Family Law Act so that the messages become less coercive themselves. But of course that isn't happening yet because we're waiting for another inquiry in the meantime.
All right, Zoe, thank you for your time. Zoe Rathis from Griffith Law School. Let's cross live now to our reporter Brittany Klein at Camp Hill. Britt, you've been there all afternoon as mourners have come to pay tribute to Hannah Clark and her children.
Yeah, we have, Matt, and it's really hard to describe the outpouring of grief that we've witnessed here this afternoon from family and friends who held a vigil, an impromptu vigil on the roadside, to strangers, people who'd never met Hannah Clark, but just wanted to come down and pay the respects to the 31-year-old and her 3 beautiful children. They've come and they've laid flowers, cards and toys in what's expected to be a growing shrine over the next couple of days. I've also spoken with counsellors who've been here just on standby for people who are just struggling to come to terms with what is just a horrific case of family violence. This is clearly a case that's touching not only this suburb here in Camp Hill, but the state of Queensland and the entire nation. The Red Rose Australia Foundation will hold a rally in Brisbane tomorrow where it's expected hundreds, if not thousands of people will turn out to pay their respects.
All right, Britt, thank you. Brittany Klein at Camp Hill. And if you or someone you know needs help, please call 1800-RESPECT or Lifeline on 131114.